From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name is Ben Grant, joined as always by JB, and we are here to get you set for the John Candy celebration game as the 5-7 Edmonton Elks are in town to take on your Toronto Argonauts at 4-8. Here's what we got on the docket for this week. MLSE and the Toronto Argonauts strike a huge deal with the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk about those details and give you our reactions to it. Plus, Nick Arbuckle is named the starting quarterback for this week against Edmonton. We'll go into that a little bit, especially after the news we thought maybe was coming out last week with Chad Kelly's potential return. And we will look into the most underrated player on the Toronto Argonauts roster for Pick 6. Plus, we've got all our usual stuff: game preview, injury report, OCDC, one thing, put me down for 20, challenge flag, and a ticket giveaway. All that and more coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. JB, before we get into all this stuff, I want to tell you about Something in the Water Brewing. You have a great opportunity this weekend. Not only is it a 3 o'clock game, making it the perfect time to drop by Something in the Water Brewing beforehand and grab a beer or two, but you have a chance to try some of their new stuff. They got a lot of great stuff to choose from, things you haven't tried. Plus, they have a fresh batch of Longboat. If you haven't yet tried Longboat, and the new and improved Longboat I'm telling you, it is something else. You've got to drop by Something in the Water Brewing. Do it this Saturday. It's steps from BMO Field, or maybe check it out after practice. If you're going to go to practice tomorrow at Lamport Stadium, drop by Something in the Water afterwards and try Longboat. You won't regret it. It is an awesome beer. And we are really close to Ghost Taco opening up too. I'll have more details on that in next week's show. Okay, GB, let's get into it. Let's talk about this MLSE partnership. So yesterday, the Argos made a huge announcement, one that I think is a big win for the team, but it definitely wasn't viewed that way on social media. So I think we have to break this one down a little bit. So first of all, in case you missed it and you didn't hear anything about this news, basically yesterday in the middle of BMO Field, MLSE, the Argos, and the Buffalo Bills launched what they're calling the Future of Football program. So this is youth flag football clinic focus. That's the primary focus here, youth flag football. There's a lot of other things tied to it, though. So at the event, hugely attended by Bills and Argos brass, you had obviously MLSE president Keith Pally was there. Terry Pagula's daughter, Laura Pagula, was there in an Argos cap, which I thought was pretty cool. Bills COO Peter Guelli, Pinball was there, Doug Flutie, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Josie Altador. Jim Kelly wasn't there, but he's going to be playing a role in an upcoming Argos game, and so he's involved in this project to a degree too. So that's basically what went on, these announcements of partnerships, of collaboration on youth football camps. And I think the reason there was so much negative reaction to this on social media is that I believe CFL fans and Argos fans have been conditioned to flinch anytime the NFL name comes up. And I totally get that. Like, especially in Toronto, like we've seen how those conversations go. They're about replacement, not partnership usually. And so it's scary when you hear anything to do with Argos or Argos ownership, MLSE, involving themselves with the Buffalo Bills. You have this reaction, like when you hear someone's phone play your wake up alarm in the middle of the day and it gives you the shudders. I totally get that. But this is different. This isn't that. So while I understand your reaction, if that's you, I don't think that's what we're talking about here. Let me tell you why I think this is different, why I'm excited about this. This isn't about the Bills or about the NFL moving north or overshadowing the Argos. It's about two basic things. So number one, building the game at the grassroots level. That's the biggest thing this is about. And number two, it's about marketing the heck out of the Toronto Argonauts. And the thing is, these are the two things that Argos fans and CFL fans, I think, have said most in complaints or suggestions about how to improve things with the Argos. So like, you got to get a younger fan base and you've got to do some marketing. So let's talk about those 2 points. So first of all, MLSE has already shown that they know how to reach kids in the city. It's not always through the most visible advertising, but they have an impact. They're in schools, they're running camps, they're getting to know young people and connect with young people in a way that traditional advertising couldn't really do with that demographic. And I know from my own kids who are 13 and 10, like in the past 6 months alone, they've thrown footballs with Nick Arbuckle, Davaris Daniels, Wyndham McManus, Quincy Moje, DeMonte Coxey, Dave Ungerer, Dylan Giffen, Enoch Mwamba, as well as Montreal's Cam Dukes and Hamilton's Reggie Stubblefield, Saskatchewan's Tavon Campbell. And none of those things have anything to do with my relationship with the Argos. That is through their own opportunities that they've had through their various flag football camps and teams that they're a part of. And the Argos are a big deal for them and for their friends, for their classmates. So we're now adding to that in this because we're taking it to another level with this partnership. And what I mean by that is, like, if we're talking youth flag football, this is stuff happening at BMO Field with Argos and Bills coaches, with merch that makes the Argos cool in non-CFL kids' eyes, because there is a divide there, and certainly for their parents and for an older demographic in Toronto. Themed events that are going to come out of this that bring new families into the fold. This is how you build the next generation of fans. So I think that part's huge. And then to switch over to the marketing side, for years, like I said, everybody's talked about the Argos need to market themselves better. Why don't I see stuff? They've now teamed up with one of the biggest marketing machines in the world in the NFL through the Bills. And instead of pushing the Argos aside, they're putting them front and center in a way that we haven't seen before. Just even yesterday, they got more media coverage than anything Argos related has in years. There's like 50 reporters at this event yesterday. So again, I get the hesitation, but to me, this is a smart long-term play. It's MLSE saying football has a future in Toronto, and we're going to make sure that the Argos are the biggest part of that. So I'm looking at this in a very positive light right now. After my rant, JB, I'm going to turn it over to you and take a breath. What are your thoughts on this MLSE partnership with the Buffalo Bills and what it will do for Toronto?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to try and pair up with a much larger, powerful organization. There is no doubt the NFL is King Kong, and if they're going to come into the Toronto market, they see, especially with their new stadium, if they see like a move for Buffalo looking to open up a new market, if you will. It makes sense to turn that around into something a little more cooperative. If it can get a few more kids, interested, if they can see that the CFL guys are as athletic, as charismatic, as entertaining as the NFL guys at each of these events, I think that's probably a positive. And I think the equals that the two leagues are working together is an interesting idea to sell a younger audience that these are, on some level, leagues of equal worth, which is not always, I think, felt by especially young people. They do a lot of fantasy football, and the NFL is everywhere and has an endless budget for advertising, and it's not in any way a fair fight. So yeah, I think it's a good move to try and carve out a corner of what's coming, because if the NFL is trying to or Buffalo is trying to really kind of open up the Toronto market more, I think it makes much more sense to work with them than to try and compete with them, which obviously is not possible.
I think the idea of being fans of both teams is what both organizations actually want. And I think I'm going to steal an idea from John Hodge, who wrote a really nice article on Three Down Nation explaining why this is actually good for everybody involved. And Mike Hogan also has a nice piece on Argonauts.ca. You can check all that out. And I think it will probably, if you're in panic mode, I think this will give you a pretty good perspective from which to look at this, or a lens to look through. The idea of, remember that Buffalo wants the Argos to succeed. That is in their best interest. The Bills organization wants the Argos to succeed. They do not want the Argonauts to disappear. That is not in the Bills' best interest, because the last thing the Buffalo Bills want is an NFL team in Toronto. That would be the worst thing for them. And so they're interested in the Toronto Argonauts' success. And what I would tie to that is something that John Hodge brought up, which is the idea of being fans of multiple teams. It's a very American thing to be a fan of, like a diehard fan of a college team that you watch on Saturdays and an NFL team that you watch on Sundays. And there are some fans that are just fans of college football, some that are just fans of the pro game, but there are millions and millions of Americans who are diehard fans of, let's say, Michigan and then the Detroit Lions. And so the idea that you can be an Argos fan and come to the game and wear the gear and be as excited as you possibly could be about that on Friday night, on Saturday, whenever the game is, and then on Sunday, tune into their broadcast and watch the Buffalo Bills. Like that is what I believe they have in mind. And I think that does nothing but good stuff for both organizations. So again, I'm behind that part of it. And I think Keith Pelley said something to that degree. Like, you can be a Bills fan and an Argos fan. And maybe Doug Flutie said it best when he talked about the Argos heritage. And he said something along the lines of, the Argos have been here for 100 years plus. They're not going anywhere. The partnership simply helps them fight for attention in a crowded sports market while preserving that heritage that the Argonauts have. And so, the way I also think about this, one last thing on this, JB, and I'll give you a last word on it too, but it's not like this wouldn't have happened if the Argos weren't involved. It's not like the Argos called up the Buffalo Bills and said, hey, come do this. Like, Buffalo, think about the situation they're in right now. They've got a ton of season ticket holders who are Canadians. It's got to be tough right now in terms of people crossing the border. I don't think there's any question about that. We know that American markets are suffering in different ways. And the Bills are opening this multi-billion-dollar stadium next year that they need to fund. So like they were going to be looking for audience in Toronto, the GTA anyway. They were going to be promoting the heck out of the Bills. For sure they were. Again, I never know anything, but that's just a logical, common sense assumption. And so for MLSE to realize that and say, hey, let's get involved in this and turn this into a positive for both their organization and ours at the same time, and be part of this mega marketing machine that is the NFL and the Buffalo Bills. So I think this is the more I think about it, the more I like this idea, and the more I think it's good for the Toronto Argonauts, even more so than I think it is for the Buffalo Bills. JB, your last thought on this, and then we'll move on to Chad Kelly watch.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to get upset about. I think it's perfectly fine arrangement that they've set up here. I don't I'm naturally conspiratorial. I don't see anything here that feels like it's not like 5 or 6 years ago where they were XFL and The Rock and blah blah blah. Like that is not this. There's no backdoor to an NFL franchise or some sort of MLSE power move here. I think it's exactly how it looks, a deal with a larger entity and making the best of a situation.
And it will make more kids Argos fans, more families Argos fans. I really do believe that. And so, yeah, I'm behind this idea 100%. Let's turn our attention to Chad Kelly watch, which seems not to be as eventful as I think maybe we thought it would be heading into this week. Ryan Dinwiddie just quashed that right
not in
away.
Front of the cameras.
Yeah, well, I know. Well, we never know, I suppose. But Dinwiddie came right out. I'm going to read you a couple lines that he said, just in case you didn't get a chance to hear his comments. This I pulled from these. I wasn't there for this, but I pulled this from Justin Dunk's article on 3 Down Nation. Dinwiddie said, Nick's going to be getting the start. Chad got out there today, got some good practice reps. The ball was live coming off his hands. I want to see him move a little cleaner. I think it's going to be week to week. Chad's our franchise quarterback. Let's not lose sight of that. But Nick's playing good football, and offensively, we're rolling pretty good. We're not going to put him out there if he can't protect himself and put him in harm's way. We don't want to make a knee-jerk decision when it comes to that. So when you hear those comments, JB, is this just a case of Chad's just not as close to coming back as we were maybe Chad led us to believe based on his Instagram post?
It was a slightly kind of opaque post, I guess you could argue. There definitely seems to be some conflict between what Chad believes is his timeline and what the organization does. I can't see how you could look at it any other way. I don't think it's a full-blown issue, but there definitely seems to be some disagreement about when he's going to come back. But I will stick to my earlier in the season declaration that I don't believe he's going to play this year.
It's not unusual for players not to be on the same page as certainly the medical team and stuff like that. Like, we know there are players that feel like, hey, I can play, I'm good to go. And meanwhile, the medical team's like, I don't think you should put him in. I don't think he's ready to go yet. I don't know if that's what's happening here. Again, this is my slogan. I never know anything. I don't know anything. But my sense of this is that he maybe feels he's a little further along than the medical team feels comfortable with. And I think Dinwiddie realizes how valuable Chad Kelly is to the Argonauts organization. You can't have anything happen to him. It's not worth it, especially with Nick playing as well as he is. Like, why risk it if you're not sure? If you're not 100%, why would you make that switch? And, the encouraging signs, Chad getting more and more reps, I think is encouraging. Him throwing the ball well. His movement is clearly getting better. And so, maybe this is an option. You wonder, in a couple weeks' time, if this is a very different conversation. Maybe even next week, we'll have to wait and see. Now, if Chad is getting closer, do you at any point put Chad in as the number 2? Like, if you feel like Chad is a week away, would you dress him and have him on the sideline, or do you wait until he's ready to start before you activate him?
I would wait till he's ready to start. I do, and we've talked about this earlier, I do believe that the conversation changes as we get further into the season. I think it becomes a little more delicate, a little more complicated to make quarterback changes week 14, 15, 16. So I'm not sure that, suppose Toronto wins the next 2 games. I think making a quarterback switch becomes harder, despite, what I said last week on the pod. I do think it is a bit of a shifting target.
And the Argos under Dinwiddie have not rushed guys back. Like, I remember in the first Grey Cup year, like with Peter Nicastro injured, we saw him practicing. We thought he looked pretty good, and we thought, well, he's such a good O-lineman. Surely they're going to find a way to activate him for this playoff run, and they didn't. They stuck with what they had said all along, that we're going to make sure our guys are 100% healthy. We know how important they are to us. We're not going to suddenly throw this guy in just because he's a great player and he can probably go. We want to be sure of that. So, yeah, it's hard for me to read the situation, other than I think maybe Chad thinks he's a little closer than the team thinks, but I don't really have more than that. And the Argos are lucky right now because, as Coach Dinwiddie said, Nick Arbuckle's playing great football. He looks like the best quarterback in the league right now, and so that puts less emphasis on rushing Chad back when you're getting that kind of play from Nick. Let's get into pick 6. This question from Noah Boso, who is a great Twitter follow, loves special teams. If you ever want to see anything special teams related, his is an account to check out. All sorts of good stuff there all the time. So I was happy when I saw this great question from him. And the timing of this is perfect because he's coming into town this week to actually watch the Argos game from Northern Ontario. So I think this is wonderful timing. So Noah, you have won a 6-pack of beer from Something in the Water Brewing. And if you want to win a 6-pack of beer like Noah, all you got to do is look for the prompt on social media every week. You can check me out on Twitter, Ben_Grant, or on Blue Sky at Coach Ben Grant. And when you see the prompt asking for Something in the Water, pick 6 questions, submit your question, and you could win a 6-pack of beer just like Noah. So congratulations, Noah. This is Noah's question. He asks, I would like to know who you think is the most underrated player on the roster right now. And I will note that Noah has said maybe Isaac Darkangelo is the guy that not enough people are talking about. JB, I want to turn it over to you first, and then I'll follow it up. In your mind, who is the most underrated Toronto Argonaut?
It's a good question. The team has probably more underrated than other years. I think a lot of guys are kind of flying below the radar. Honestly, I know it feels like a homer pick, but I would say Jack Gassar. I think his importance to special teams is absolutely pivotal, and he's not. We certainly know him and have followed and recognize him, but I wouldn't say that he's necessarily a high profile player on the team. But his presence on special teams, is transformational, and I think he is such a great tackler, and he's such a physical presence out there. He changes a whole aspect of the game with little to no fanfare, other than our occasional pumping his tires.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. And I think you could throw Brian Haralamana into the mix there too. Same kind of guy. And I think there's some new guys too that aren't really getting talked about enough as well. Like I would tip my hat to Aaron Casey, a guy that's had over 200 snaps now and is not really a name that's talked about. He's been with the team for several weeks now, played right away.
He's really flashed. Like he's a real player. Like that's a real discovery.
And if Wyndham McManus weren't on the team, he'd probably be the starting middle linebacker by now because of those flashes that we've seen. And they'd have two great guys to choose from in Darkangelo and Casey. But Casey is impressive. If you just look for him, you spend your time watching the Argos game this week against Edmonton, and you just take a look for those jersey numbers. And every time Casey gets on the field, just watch him. He is hugely impactful. He's often sent in on the rush after the quarterback, but for a really big guy, he is a large linebacker. He's very good in coverage too. He's got great feet. He's got really good burst and speed. So I love him as a player, and no one ever talks about him because you've got Wyndham McManus and Cameron Judge, Isaac Darkangelo even, and Casey kind of gets left out a little bit there. That is not my pick though. It is a shout out. My pick is Peter Nicastro, who is, maybe more well-known and more talked about than any of these other guys because, he's been an all-star and he's obviously had several years now as a great player. I think he's underappreciated this year especially because people have talked about the problems on the Argos offensive line. That has been a topic. And one consistent from the very first game of the season when he had to come in mid-game to relieve Darius Sirocco is Peter Nicastro's play. He doesn't have bad games. He rarely has a bad snap. And he does something that most centers in the CFL can't do. Those giant nose tackles that teams strategically place directly over the center, knowing it's going to swallow up 2 guys, doesn't have the same impact on Toronto. Nicastro doesn't need help against those guys. Now, sometimes they give it if it's only a 3-man rush. Obviously, you're going to get guard help there. But Nicastro is one of those few centers that can handle those problems that other teams can't handle. When you've got a Sean Oakman lined up against you, or Hutchins from Calgary, like one of these guys that is just a machine, Mustafa Johnson, that kind of player. Nicastro can be left one-on-one with guys like that. And that is a luxury, and I don't think that gets talked about enough. Offensive line doesn't enough in general. Maybe not on this podcast. Has been a theme this year. We talked a lot about Toronto's offensive line, but generally that is not something that gets talked about a lot. And Peter Nicastro is the leader of that offensive line right now. His play has been the most solid. And if I had to vote for an all-star center right now, my vote would be for Peter Nicastro. All right, game preview time, JB. So Edmonton's coming in having won 4 of their last 5. They're now actually tied with the BC Lions for 4th in the West. I don't think that is being talked about enough. They should have won 5 of their last 6. They would have won 5 of their last 6 if they hadn't had a drop ball in the end zone against Hamilton, a wide open receiver in Keon Julian Grant, and a guy that never drops the ball, and it went off his hands in the end zone. That would have been the 5th out of 6 wins. And it might have helped the Argos out a little bit too with a loss for Hamilton. But that's where they stand right now. So they are back into the playoff hunt. They are 1 game back of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The standings are nuts in both the East and the West. So you got in the West, like just looking at Winnipeg, Calgary and Saskatchewan are going to the playoffs. Winnipeg is 6-6, and they are falling. They are not in a good place right now. Zach Collaros is probably not going to play this week. The BC Lions, on paper, look like a decent team, but they keep losing games they have no business losing, including last week in Ottawa. And they're at 5-7, and Edmonton's at 5-7. So they are 1 game back of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, they don't currently have the tiebreaker against Winnipeg, but that's something that can be easily resolved the way they're playing. So they have every reason to bring everything they've got into this week. And Toronto's in the same boat as Edmonton, where this game is huge for them. Toronto's sitting at 4-8, 1 game back of the Montreal Alouettes. Now, they can't win the tiebreaker because they lost the first 2 meetings to Montreal, and there's only 1 remaining game against the Alouettes. But 1 game back with a game against the Alouettes coming up, and Montreal going into a pretty rough place to play this week in Saskatchewan. Without their starting quarterback. Like, this could very easily, by the end of the week, be Montreal and Toronto with identical records and a game coming up against the Alouettes a week later. So this is a huge game for Toronto that way. And Ottawa's right on their heels. Ottawa's at 4-8, same record as the Argos. Argos have the tiebreaker, but if Ottawa wins this week and Toronto loses, they've just lost 3rd place in the East. So that's a little run through the standings. This is a big game for both teams. And let's not forget as well that this is the John Candy celebration game. The first 5,000 fans are getting a t-shirt honoring John Candy, the late Argos owner and Canadian hero, celebrity. And so if you are able to be one of the first 5,000 down to BMO Field for this game, make sure, if you're a GO Train rider too, check the GO Train schedule. It's a little bit of a mess this weekend from what I saw earlier, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you get down there in good time if you're trying to find a parking spot as well. And you want to be there early to get one of those 5,000 shirts. So that's what's on the line, JB. We'll take a look at the injury report quickly, and then we'll get into OCDC. For the Elks, Nick Anderson, limited yesterday, limited today. He's trying to come back from that abdominal injury. Jared Brinkman hasn't practiced. He's unlikely to play this week. Javon Leake has been sick. He's got an illness, didn't practice yesterday and today. You would imagine he will try and make this happen. He's still got a few days to recover from that. I would personally lean towards him playing, even though he hasn't yet this week. And then for the Argos side, some concern. Running back, that's not new. I know there's been concerns at running back all season long. Spencer Brown has been limited all week with a hip injury. Deontay McMahon. I'm so good at McMahon. It's Mike Hogan who I blame for me still saying McMahon. He does it once every game, and we're slowly collecting up quite a fund in the McMahon jar. Deontay McMahon, limited in practice this week too. So there aren't other options right now at running back really for the Toronto Argonauts unless we're coming off the practice roster, which is possible for this week, but we'll have to wait and see. In terms of the O-line, Sage Dockstader practiced in a limited fashion yesterday coming back from the head injury. Did not practice today, which isn't a great sign. Chad Kelly limited both days. Derek Sluka practicing full yesterday, full today. That's great news. I'm sure he will be back starting at safety this week, and that is a much needed boost. And then Anthony Vandal with the ankle injury, limited yesterday, did not practice today. So we'll see if that was for evaluation, if they're testing him out. I think if you're interested in both Dockstader and Vandal, check the Thursday practice report and see what their status is like. All right, JB, let's get into it. It is time for OCDC. We'll start off with you, JB. You are the defensive coordinator for the Edmonton Elks. What is your plan this week? How are you going to slow down this machine that is Nick Arbuckle, that throws for 400 yards every week and finds a way to get a win in the dying moments? How are you stopping this machine?
It's not a great matchup for Edmonton. They are not very good at stopping the pass. They're not very good at rushing the passer. If you're Edmonton, I'm not sure how excited you are about this game. To try and stop Toronto has been something no one's been able to do. So I think Hamilton had some success with the, abandon the run and have 8 guys playing defensive back. I still lean towards that. I still think that is the way to cover the Argos. I think that you want to play, man two, or if you want to play, six DBs. I think you want to crowd the field on the passing routes and live with the runs. Now, Toronto punished Hamilton for that. So will they, will that work again? But I think that's what you have to do. I think you have to concentrate on taking away the pass and living with the other stuff. So for me, it's a deep shell and, trying to handle that incredible wide receiver unit that you're talking 4, 5, 6 deep. Which is really tough. Almost nobody has 6 defensive backs that they really like. So you're looking at 3 or 4 guys that you try and hide, and you can't do it against the Argos. And I don't know how to fix that other than incredible pass rush, which Edmonton doesn't have. So, thankfully I'm not the Edmonton defensive coordinator, and I don't have to say all this to the coach. But I don't envy his position. If you can take away the 30-yard passes, I think you can limit the damage. And if you can play a pass-first defense, I think you can do better. But yeah, it's really hard. I don't think it's magic. I mean, Toronto has a lot of good wide receivers, so somebody is getting open because unless you're lucky enough to have 5, 6 guys that can play great man coverage, and very few teams do.
Switching over to the other side of the ball, I love playing a team a second time. And so if I'm Edmonton, I'm looking back at their win over the Argonauts back on August 15th and saying, okay, well, what was it we did to beat Toronto that time? And I'm not looking to do that again per se. I'm looking to play off that because I know that Toronto's going to be watching that film intently and saying, okay, well, Rankin torched us in the last game. He was getting the ball out of the backfield. He was running the football well. We got to make sure we're taking away Rankin. We can't let him have a game like that again. And I think you now use that as a bit of a distraction. I'm not saying you don't use Rankin at all. You still have to go to him. He's one of your whole offense goes through Rankin. Like that is the offense as much as Cody Fajardo does his thing. And he's been playing some great football, really tough football. He's been hit so hard so many times and he keeps getting back up and making plays. So obviously Cody's a big part of this offense, but it all goes through Rankin. And so I think you have to create some doubt in the Argos defense. You use them as a bit of a decoy, a distraction. You send them out of the backfield. You go the other way. Force Toronto DBs to choose between him in the flats and a mid-level player on an out, where you've got that corner saying, okay, I got this guy a few yards behind me. I got Rankin up here. If you can get him to cheat towards Rankin and then make a play over the top, that's a huge success. Defenders are taught in that situation, take the deep guy, give up the short pass in favor of the deep pass. But when you've been watching film all week on Rankin, that gets harder and harder to do. So that'd probably be my offensive strategy if I'm Edmonton. And then once that doubt is set, now you can go back to Rankin. Now you can get him more involved. Now you get him on handoffs and draw plays and stuff that they love running for him, screens in long down and distance situations. So that is my offensive plan if I were the OC of the Edmonton Elks. JB, let's switch over to the good guys. You are the defensive coordinator for the Toronto Argonauts. What are you doing to stop Rankin? What are you doing to stop Cody
Yeah,
Fajardo?
well, I mean, you stole my headline for sure. It's Rankin. I mean, I said that last time. I mean, it's Rankin. He's everything. He is their offense. He, ran for 1,000,000 yards last week. He's incredible out of the backfield. He is the engine. You have to take him out of the game, and so I think you have to dedicate manpower to him. I think where sometimes teams will let running backs leak out and take their yards and not really let that affect their overall defense. I think in this case, you have to, dedicate somebody to him. You have to have somebody in his pocket everywhere he goes on the field. I think you have to try and rough him up on those passing plays. You got, if it's behind the line of scrimmage, you're all over him, shoving him, pushing him, jacking him up, getting him off his route. Every time you get a chance, he's going to catch those little underneath screens. Those should be kill shots. You're looking to wear him down. To me, he is the focus of the defense. I'm not worried about anything else Edmonton is going to do. I'm just all over him in terms of dedicating manpower to stopping the run and taking away those easy, quick first down passes to him out of the backfield. You can't let him get him going, and for me, everything is that I want. I'll get into my one thing, but he is to me the total focus. The rest of it, you just have to play, football, and they have some okay guys, but there's nobody there that you shouldn't just be able to play football with. Rankin is special, and he has to be taken care of.
For the Toronto Argonauts offense, I want to target the middle of the field in the pass game. I think that is the vulnerability for Edmonton. Just watching a couple of their games over the last few days, I like their DBs. I think they're getting great corner play from either side. I think their halfbacks are solid. Metier doesn't quite look like himself. I really like Royce Metier as a safety. I loved him as a Toronto Argonaut. I don't know if he's banged up or something, but he's seemed a little bit late. And the linebackers, as much as I love them as run stoppers, they're just not there in pass coverage. And so you've got that middle of the field that just seems to continually be left wide open, especially if you can get those linebackers going the wrong way. It's not a crew that, without Anderson in there, is able to recover well. And so I think a lot of your offensive plan this week has to be getting the linebackers to take a wrong first step. So obviously plays like counters I love, but I think even to your RPO game that Arbuckle's very good at, I think you want to get that going. That gets linebackers out of position, throw those glance routes. I think I'm looking at a big game for both Kevin Mittal and Makai Polk, guys that do some business over the middle. I think this can be big for them. I also want to try not just your conventional runs and encounters, but bootlegs, which we haven't really seen Arbuckle do. It's not really in his skill set. I think this is a team you can actually run those against, especially off of like a stretch play action out of pistol where Arbuckle's running full one way just to try and get that ball out to whoever's playing running back this week. But then it's a play fake. He boots around the other side. I think there's going to be a ton of wide open space for Mittal, for Polk to sit in behind those linebackers. So that's going to be my offensive plan this week. I don't see any reason why the Argos shouldn't be able to put up another 28 plus points on this Elks defense, as well as they've been playing. And they are. The funny thing about this game, like these are two of the hottest teams in the CFL right now, Edmonton, Toronto. The scoreboard of the standings don't necessarily reflect that, but yeah, both of these teams have been very hard to beat the last several weeks. So you would think this is going to be a pretty exciting one. I do for sure. JB, what is your one thing for this week? Where are you going with that?
Well, not very exciting. I looked at different things. I mean, there's some boring stuff. I certainly wasn't going to say I hope they run for 100 yards or things that they're not particularly good at stopping passes over 30 yards. But I'm going to go with my guy Rankin. If they keep Rankin under 75 all-purpose yards, I guarantee a victory.
All right. 75, you say?
Yeah, now look, that's no easy task, but for me, if you make him your primary focus, I think it's doable.
For my one thing, I want 4 sacks. I think it is totally possible in this game. Edmonton does allow sacks. Cody Fajardo, it makes it tough on his O lineman. His drops are really deep. Now, I feel like the Edmonton tackles have adjusted well to that over the last couple of games. In the first few starts Fajardo made, he was getting hammered because he would drop deep and the tackles were setting shallow. And so they weren't ready for the angles that the D linemen were taking. They're looking for the D lineman to cut back inside on a smaller circle, a smaller radius. But instead, they were getting way downfield because that's where Fajardo was. There's been an adjustment from the tackles now, but I feel like there's an opportunity for inside moves against this team now. And so I do want to see defensive ends take inside pass. I want to see late developing stunts. You're not gambling. Like, you don't risk like some teams do against Nick Arbuckle where just nobody has contained. You can't do that with Fajardo. He'll burn you. But you plan these late stunts so that inside move happens really in a true one-on-one, and usually the guard would now pick that up, but he can't because of the depth that the tackles are having to get to. So I think there's a real possibility here for a multi-sack game for a couple of these guys on the Argos defensive line. I would love to see Derek Parrish finally have one of those games where he really lights up the opposing quarterback. So maybe that will be him answering my one thing for this week. JB, it is time for Put Me Down for 20, and you and I are rolling in fleeces this week after huge wins last week. We only had one bet, and so we put all 20 fleeces, both of us, on a play that paid off. Yours more than mine. You had the Elks plus 205, which was a winner, and 20 golden fleeces on it. You are now up to 229 and a half golden fleeces. You're back in the positive. I had Saskatchewan even on the money line over Winnipeg for 20 golden fleeces. That came through. I'm now up to 273 golden fleeces. So it's swing for the fences time, JB. We are playing with house money. And before we give you our ridiculous bets for this week, please be advised that you should not listen to anything that we say on this podcast. Take it seriously. Bet on it. It's just not a good idea. And I know we've done well for the last couple of weeks, but this is not a tried and true investment strategy by any means. Only ever bet what you're happy to lose the cost of entertainment. And certainly don't base it on anything that we're saying, because we are just having fun with this segment. JB, I'm going to give you honors this week. What are you doing with your 20 golden fleeces?
I do. I am feeling, I'm feeling a little flush here. So I'm going to swing for the fences. My first is I'm going to go for Herslow, 850 plus 850 to be the first touchdown. So clearly he's got a great connection with Arbuckle. I love those first touchdowns. The juice is
it's tempting,
enticing. So I'm going to go with that Herslow to get it done for me.
I'm not sure either one of us has ever hit on one of these.
No,
but
I haven't even really come that close on any of them. But anyways, we'll try one more.
Herslow does give the Elks trouble. So that's one thing.
There's a lot for, I think a target he likes in the zone. And my second one is in the Hamilton-Winnipeg game. I have the over 59.5, and that's at plus 250.
How much did you have to? You have to bring it up a ways. Like, did you bring it up like 3 or 4 points or something like that?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't love those over. The under, lots of juice on the under. But who wants to cheer for an under? I don't care if that is a square statement. I'm not cheering for an under. That's terrible.
I don't mind that though. Like 31-30 wins you.
I know, but
you the bet.
You grinding out your breakfast coffee money. Doesn't interest me.
Well, I'm not grinding this week. I've got some swinging for the fences plays. I will see your Herslow plus 850, and I will up you a Dejan Brissett first touchdown for plus 1800. So that is That is a long
He
shot,
does
but
like Brissett in the red zone too.
he does. It would have happened in Hamilton if not for that penalty. Don't think he's not going to go back there again. Brissett's a great red zone target. I just thought it's hard to find value sometimes. This is one of those weeks with such heavy favorites on the point spreads that there just wasn't a lot there. But when I saw plus 1,800 Brissett first TD, I'm like, well, that's a good way for me to lose 10 golden fleeces. So that's my bet. And my other one, I am going to take the Ottawa Red Blacks to win at plus 365 over the BC Lions. I don't actually think that's going to happen. I think BC is going to win this game easily. I just think that's a really good price on a team that just finished beating that very same team last week. Ottawa's not as good a team as the BC Lions, but the BC Lions are really good at shooting themselves in the foot. They've had a rough go of it this season, and all it takes is one weird play, and that's just too good a price for me to pass up. So those are my wagers for this week. Let's transition into Challenge Flag. Tough loss for you last week. You struggled a little bit. You lost the BC game. You won Hamilton, but then lost Winnipeg, lost Calgary. And I had thrown my challenge flag on the Saskatchewan-Winnipeg game, so that gives me a point. I'm leading 8-6 on the season. Your record is now 29-25 overall. Let's get into our Week 15 plays. And I'm also going to tell you, people keep asking me, and I always forget every week. People want to know who to cheer for mathematically. It's not going to be a fun week this week, but I'll tell you who you should be rooting for if you're an Argos fan. JB, who are you taking, Winnipeg at Hamilton?
I can take Hamilton. I'm off Winnipeg. I don't, I don't think Winnipeg is very good anymore. It took quite a bit of being beaten over the head, but I have come to that conclusion.
In terms of who you should be cheering for in that one, it depends what you think Hamilton's going to do the rest of the way. If you think Hamilton's only going to win one more game the rest of the way, then cheer for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Argos are going to be able to catch Hamilton because they really only need to win 2 games. Like go 2-4 the rest of the way to be very difficult to catch. So I think in that case, instead, you just try and push those West teams further back so the crossovers less of an option for more different teams. The more you can get involved in that, the better. So I think it's more realistic to actually cheer for Winnipeg this week, but I don't like their chances. Ottawa at BC. I know where you're going, JB. Can I just write down BC right now?
Yeah, well, look, also the book. I mean, I was tempted. There's a lot of juice being offered for the all caps. But I would not be seduced by the siren song.
And you should be cheering for the Red Blacks in this one, in my mind. I know they're tied with the Argos right now, and you want to push them away. I'm more worried about the BC Lions. I think the BC Lions are a better team. If Ottawa can find a way to win and Toronto wins this week, the Argos are in a playoff spot. And so that's an easy decision for me. You got to cheer for the Red Blacks if you're an Argos fan this week, as difficult as that is. Edmonton at Toronto. What's your play on this one, JB?
Yeah, Toronto. I like Toronto. I think it would be a shame to not win this game at home. It would kind of, knock the birthday cake off the table. That they've really set themselves up to kind of make the end of the season compelling and interesting. They need this game to set that in motion, and I think they get it at home.
Coach Dinwiddie is very good coming off a bye. This team has played extremely well since he's been here coming off a bye. And so I like that too. I like it anyway, but coming off a bye even more so. Like I know the guys try and have downtime. I know Coach Dinwiddie, I think he was able to get back home and stuff during the bye week. But the way he's wired, like that's just not a guy that can take time off. Like as much as he'll try to in a season, he's just not wired that way. He's a competitor. And so no matter what he was doing, I'm sure the wheels were going and he was thinking about what am I going to do with Edmonton. And so I'm sure it's been a productive work week so far for the Argos coming off the bye. I expect them to play really well against Edmonton on Saturday. And then finally, Montreal at Saskatchewan. JB, what's your play there?
Yeah. Montreal is such a wild card, but I don't think they have enough people back yet. So I have to go with Saskatchewan. They're the number 1 team in the league right now. And I would take Montreal if they were uh, largely healthy, which they're not yet. So I have to take Saskatchewan.
And that is who you should be cheering for, Argos fans. Cheering for the Riders is helpful in this case. And that one's, I think, probably the most obvious of all of those. And lastly, just before we sign off this week, JB, I want to congratulate our ticket winner, courtesy of Something in the Water Brewing, who does a ticket giveaway for every Argos home game. Our winner this week is Jordan McKenzie. So congratulations, Jordan. We will get in touch and make sure we get you your tickets for this Saturday's game, the John Candy Celebration game. And you got to make sure you're out for this one. There's every reason to want to be out for this one. It is not only a hugely important game, it's a Saturday game. It's a Saturday afternoon game with a 3 o'clock start. Those are the best, the absolute best for families. You got a family that's thinking about coming out to see an Argos game. This is definitely the one to do. And on top of that, John Candy Celebration Day, first 5,000 people into the stadium get a John Candy t-shirt. And those look, they're on social media. If you want to check out the Argos Twitter account, you can see them there. They look pretty awesome. It's definitely something you want to own. Well, that will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.